'92, I went through the riots here in the city of Long Beach, and I thought I'd seen it all. Then shortly thereafter, 9/11 hit, and that affected the entire nation. It certainly affected me personally, affected our department. And then this pandemic hits, that's affecting not only the entire nation, but the entire planet. And I think to myself, I've had 34 years to prep for this. I think I'm ready. And then I look at our firefighters that we just hired on. Many of them only had 34 shifts.
The three largest departments in our region have experienced the same increase in COVID-19 cases. It's important for us to get this message out to ensure that our firefighters recognize that the virus has not disappeared, and we need to stay vigilant as we move forward.
In the past 2 weeks, the Los Angeles City Fire Department has had over 20 members test positive.
We're emphasizing to our firefighters they are not exempt from wearing their facial coverings and practicing social distancing in the fire stations.
We're seeing a number of patients who are presenting without the typical COVID symptoms, without the flu-like symptoms and cough and fever and shortness of breath. They're coming in with car accidents and stabbings and shootings and strokes and cardiac arrests and heart attacks and everything else. And we test them because of being admitted to the hospital, and they're turning out positive.
Coronaviruses are not new. We've known about that family of viruses for a long time. They're a common family of cold viruses, but this one's different. And what makes this one different was it mutated, and so unlike a lot of viruses where there's immunity out there and people have had these before, this is a virus that the entire population is susceptible to. Sometimes people go through a period where they're really contagious, but they're not symptomatic. So they don't know that they're spreading it. They're there working and they feel fine and they're spreading it.
We're in very, very precarious situation right now. And think about it, you're the first line of defense to protect the public. We're seeing a huge surge in not only the number of people who are testing positive for COVID, but the number of first responders and firefighters and paramedics who are testing positive, a big increase in the number of individuals requiring hospitalization, and a spike in the number of people requiring ICU care. This should cause everybody deep, deep concern.
We all have a responsibility to not spread the disease to others and therefore infect either ourselves, our families, our coworkers, or our patients.
The best thing we can do is just assume that any one of us could be contagious at any given moment. Take those precautions so that if we do find out the next day that we have symptoms and now we have it, that we weren't spreading it in the last 2 shifts at the fire station.
PPE works, but it only works if you use it. We expect you to use it 100% of the time. Do not let your guard down.
Our expectation is that our troops lead by example. And that example includes using best practices, wearing masks, practicing good hygiene, hand washing, maintaining social distancing. We owe that to the public. There's a public trust that's out there, and they know that we've been out and we've seen lots of sick people, and they need to know that when we come in, we've done everything possible to keep ourselves safe, not only to keep ourselves safe, but our own families and the people that we treat out on each and every one of our emergency responses.
It's my expectation that our members will comply with these directives, especially in the fire station. I have a sense sometimes that our firefighters sometimes think they're living in a bubble. And if you visit a fire station, the camaraderie still exists. The handball games, the card playing at the kitchen table, sharing meals together within a few feet without taking precautions. We need to change that. We really do.
So when we look at the protocols and procedures and the PPE requirements in place today for COVID-19, recognize that they may be around for an extended period of time. It's part of our safety equipment. We need to embrace it and not push away from it.
I think this latest resurgence has proven that we're not doing enough. We can't get complacent. We got to stay diligent on every one of these protocols.
I just want to reemphasize my number one objective: the safety and welfare of all firefighters, not just in my department, but the 10,000 firefighters in the entire county of Los Angeles. It is important that you listen to our instructions as it pertains to COVID-19.
During this pandemic, the medical information has been extremely dynamic. We really needed to understand what was happening with the virus, how it infects people, what the risks are. And that's something we didn't know in the beginning and is changing all the time. So just understand that protocols may change as we gain new knowledge. And so we need to incorporate that and embrace it as a system so we give the best care for our patients.
We are constantly revising and updating our department bulletin on the COVID pandemic because we're learning more about it every day from the health scientists.
The protocol does change quite a bit, and I know there is some pushback not only by the general public, but sometimes within the fire department. But what we need to realize is that protocol is always changing.
We need to remain flexible and agile to those changes to ensure that we flatten the curve and protect our regional firefighters so that we're available to meet our mission.
For all firefighters in the County of Los Angeles, you can visit the LAFCA website, the Los Angeles County Public Health website, or CDC to get more information regarding COVID-19.
Good sources for accurate information for firefighters includes our website at the LA County EMS Agency. We actually have a specific section dedicated to COVID-19, and it has all of our latest updates and policies and memorandums that were released.
There, a firefighter can find all of the guidelines. It'll have all the resources available so that a firefighter can have the most up-to-date information in regards to guidelines, protocols, and procedures.
I'd just like to take a moment to talk about Chuck Hakopian. You're going to meet him here in a minute. He's a firefighter up at Station 11, and Chuck was one of our first firefighters to be exposed to COVID and show up positive for the COVID-19 virus. When you see Chuck, you're going to see a big, strong, healthy guy, somebody that's in the gym quite frequently, and you're going to wonder, how did it ever get to him? Well, it did.
I would like to also thank Captain Damian Spencer of my department for sharing his story about COVID-19. He is an example of how you can never let your guard down.
We have one of our fire engineers, Ricky Cradle. Ricky is 46, 47 years old, healthy, firefighter, serving our community on a daily basis for close to 20 years now. He's been fighting for his life for the last 3 months, in incredible spirit. To see him fighting for his life for this virus is, for me as the fire chief, it is a challenge, and he's just one of many first responders, community members that are suffering from this virus.
My name's Christopher Fernandez. I'm a firefighter for LA City. I'm 27 years old. We went on a call for a 36-year-old male was in cardiac arrest. We were in close proximity with him, and that's where we believe that I contracted it.
About mid-shift that day, two guys started feeling pretty sick, getting some extreme fatigue, which is normal for our job, but yeah, just something wasn't right.
Wednesday evening, about 5:15 or 5:30, I received an email that I was exposed to someone that had COVID.
Now in the back of my head, I'm thinking, I got my wife sick and my kids sick, and the whole time I'm thinking, if they do have it, it's going to be from me because I've been the only one out of the house, especially with the job we have.
My kids were a little concerned because of all the coverage they had seen. Their schools are out because of COVID, so this is a big deal to everyone. Their first question, and I saw their eyes, they were concerned. They said, "Are you going to die?"
Wasn't until like 2 or 3 days in to where I started feeling more severe symptoms.
I just couldn't catch my breath. I was tachycardic, I had low SpO2 levels, and I was sweating profusely.
Extremely bad headaches, just pinpoint in the back of my head that would not go away. Way more fatigue than normal, lost my sense of taste and smell.
Started hearing crackles in my lungs that I had never experienced. I've heard crackles with patients, but not on myself.
I have no underlying health conditions. I've never had any lung issues. I've never had any diabetes. Before I got this virus, I was extremely healthy and probably some of the best shape of my life. And after contracting the virus, that's just not the case anymore.
Then when I started getting fatigue from just a few steps, going from my backyard back to my room, that's when I was like, okay, I'm starting to feel it.
I was off work for about 2 or 3 weeks. I went back to work, saw a pulmonologist, he ran some more extensive tests, and we found out that I had diminished lung function. So when I breathe in, I don't get as much oxygen as everyone else. And he contributes that to the coronavirus.
If you're one of the guys or gals who thinks you're not going to get it because you're in good shape, I didn't even think I had it up until the moment I got the phone call.
I let my guard down, and I won't do that again. I encourage others not to do that again because this is real. Regardless of what you believe or think about it, it was real, it is real, and it's going to continue to be real.
I'm Jenny Cradle. My husband works for Torrance Fire. And back on April 5th, he contracted coronavirus, the COVID-19. So I spoke to Dr. Cohen, the medical director, and asked for trigger points for when I needed to get him into the ER.
I was talking to Ricky, but primarily talking to Jenny, because even the first couple of days, Ricky, he was too short of breath to speak on the phone.
He was basically panting for air, tripod position, and I called Dr. Cohen, and he just stopped me mid-sentence and said, "You need to call 911.
I basically told her to hang up, get into the hospital, because that was far past the point where he was going to be okay just being at home.
When the paramedics arrived, his O2 sat was 72%, which is dangerously low. His pulse rate was really high, his blood pressure was really high. They transported him code 3 down to the hospital.
You know, on nights like that with Ricky, just knowing that he was more sick than he probably realizing that his body could only do so much at home without additional support with oxygen and eventually intubation and things like that.
Me and the kids were given about 10 minutes warning that this was happening, and I had to get the kids onto the phone with him to say goodbye, because we didn't know if he was going to make it, and we didn't know if he would come out of that intubation or off the ventilator. And that was basically our moment to be able to tell him everything that we wanted to tell him.
Ricky has been devastated by COVID. He developed blood clots, he developed clots in his legs, he developed problems where he lost a few toes because of that.
He was hospitalized for 89 days, ventilated for 69 days, and he underwent 5 brain surgeries, 2 were emergency life-threatening.
Ricky will never be the same again. The Ricky that went into the hospital is not the Ricky who is convalescing now. He will not be the same.
He's had other procedures, obviously. He had dialysis for 3.5 weeks because his kidneys started failing in the middle of trying to take care of his lungs. He has a G-tube, he's had PICC lines, he had 3 drains coming out of his head because of the brain surgery and the brain injury. He had EVD lines, and for 7.5 weeks, he's had his skull removed. It's back on now with plates. He's been through quite a lot.
His family won't be the same for having gone through this, and our department hopefully will learn from this and take it more seriously as we move forward to try to never have to go through anything even similar again.
In the last several months, we've been dealing with multiple simultaneous issues. We had the COVID and still have the COVID pandemic. We had the George Floyd unrest. In LA, we had a Skid Row fire where we nearly lost 11 of our firefighters at an explosion. And we're preparing for another challenging brush season, all while we're still responding to our 1,400 emergency incidents per day. In spite of all of these things, we have the capability, and we've proven we can multitask. And this is the ultimate test of our ability to do just that.
We have the technology, we have the talent, we have the capability to defeat this virus. We just need to recognize that we need to do it together, as we've done many, many, many times in the past.
Fire Service is an all-risk organization, and I'm proud to know that we have dedicated men and women that put their lives on the line each and every day to protect the lives of others. This COVID-19 presents a new challenge to us, but as any other situation in the past, We have stood up to this challenge, we have addressed this challenge, and we will do it in a safe way to keep ourselves healthy and protect the communities that we serve.